Well, happy Veterans Day. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Don't forget about all the events that are going on to recognize veterans, including the parade downtown. But if you see anybody out and about, you know our veterans, or just pick up the phone and call your family, your friends who are veterans, and thank them for their dedication to this country and for volunteering their service. And keep in mind, there are still some veterans out there that didn't volunteer and were drafted. So definitely take time to thank them. And we thank you here on WMAY. And I'm sure that State Representative Tim Butler also has similar words for veterans. Representative, thanks for taking time with us here on WMAY.
Absolutely. Thanks, Greg. That's a great way to start. And yeah, I mean, this is what this day is all about. I'm the proud son, grandson, brother, uncle of veterans. I got a couple nephews that are dumb enough to jump out of airplanes, for the U.S. Army. But God bless them. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to serve in the General Assembly. We wouldn't be here today without our veterans. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Call your veteran up. Call people that you know. Thank them for their service. And that's what today's all about.
So we wanted to chat with you about some news that came out this morning. You sent me a tweet thread that you put up.
Yep.
And this is after, of course, you won re-election, being unopposed in the General Assembly. But you're not looking to be in the General Assembly come next year.
Yeah, it's funny. I sat in this very studio with Jim Leach probably the first week or so when I got in the General Assembly, and Jim did his usual good job of trying to pin me down on term limits, which I believe in, and asking me how long I was going to serve. And if I remember correctly, I said, Jim, if I'm sitting here 10 years from now, tell me I've been here too long. And so I've been in about 8 years. And I knew when I got into this job that, I'd always thought that probably 8 to 12 years is kind of the sweet spot to do it. And then you move on and do other things. Yeah. And so I kind of knew at some point, here in the next year or so that I'd probably be thinking about moving out of the General Assembly. And so this is an opportunity for me to, I'm going to step down at the end of the year to become president of the Illinois Railroad Association. It's not something that was on my radar screen. It's something that's come up over the last few weeks. And just developed into a good conversation with these folks, and it's a good opportunity. And as I've told a couple people, you come do these jobs for a few years, you move on, and you do something else. That's the idea behind it. And the opportunities don't always line up with our election calendars. They just don't. And especially in Illinois, when we have to run for office, I run every 2 years as a rep. And when you have to file so early and you have to campaign so much, I wasn't thinking about this, when I had to file a year ago. I mean, that's when I had to file a year ago, and that's usually later than we had to file. So you're not thinking about it. And so I know, few people will probably be upset that, I was on the ballot and I should have done it. But look, they don't line up the way, it is what it is. But I think it's a really good opportunity for me. The Railroad Association is they're a legacy organization, advocating for the interests of the freight railroads. They've been around for 70 years. And obviously, Illinois is such a huge state when it comes to rail. I mean, we are the state when it comes to rail.
We're like a major kind of
all the class
artery,
one,
right?
All the class one railroads come through here. Chicago is a giant spaghetti bowl of railroads that come together. A quarter of the freight in the country comes through Chicago. So that tells you how important this is. This state was built on rivers and rails and transportation, and it's a great industry to be involved with. And certainly here in town in Springfield, everybody's very familiar what we're trying to do to consolidate the UP and the Norfolk Southern tracks down the 10th Street corridor. And so it's a good opportunity for me to continue working on some issues that I've worked for a long time. The infrastructure, transportation space, even before I got in the GA, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun.
State Representative Tim Butler with us here with Springfield's Morning News, soon to be the president of the Illinois Railroad Association. And how is the work you did with the General Assembly, how is that going to translate over to the Railroad Association? And I guess what I'm asking is, what exactly is the Railroad Association? What's their role when it comes to intersecting with the General Assembly or with the federal government?
Yeah, so the association is a nonprofit representative of the freight railroads. So the Union Pacifics, Norfolk Southern, CSX, Canadian Pacific, Canadian National, the big freight railroads that you see. So they're the advocacy organization for those folks. So I'll be working with those, especially the state government affairs folks with the railroads, to advocate for the industry, and not just at the state capitol, to do work in the communities, to take the phone calls from angry citizens when they're blocked, to talk about the good things that freight rail does in the state of Illinois, and to really kind of raise the profile of the association about the good stuff that railroads do in the state of Illinois. And so obviously a big part of that will be dealing with the General Assembly. I think they saw my background not just in the General Assembly, where transportation and infrastructure is one of the main things that I've got involved with in the General Assembly. And I tell members, especially new members when they come in, find the issues that you're passionate about and go to work on those, because we deal with everything under the sun, and you can't know everything under the sun in the GA. And so, Medicaid and human services and stuff like that are really important issues, but that hasn't been like my space in the General Assembly. Transportation infrastructures has been at the forefront. I've been on transportation committee since the day I walked in the door. I was the top Republican on the Capitol Committee when we did the Capitol bill. And so this is an area that I've enjoyed working. And through my previous work, whether for Rodney Davis or Ray LaHood, these have always been big issues for us and stuff that I've worked on. And so I think the association saw that and thinks that I've done good stuff with it. They know I try to work across the aisle and work in a collaborative fashion, and so it all kind of came together, and like I said, I think it's really going to be a good opportunity, and I'm looking forward to it.
State Representative Tim Butler with us here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY. Now 6:45. Representative, of course, some are looking at the timing of this coming from post-election, this General Assembly getting ready to wrap up, and then the new General Assembly, which you're not going to be a part of with this announcement. So a couple of procedural things here. Number one, who replaces you?
Yeah, that's obviously that's a big question. The process for appointment to a vacancy in the General Assembly is spelled out in state statute. And so for the new 95th district, which will become effective on January 11th when the new General Assembly gets sworn in, and I won't get sworn in, they will immediately trigger the process for an appointment to a vacant seat. And so how that works in Illinois, the new 95th district has 3 counties in it: Sangamon, Christian, Macon, but it's 95% Sangamon County, a small portion of Christian and Macon counties. So the partisan county chairs, so Diane Barghouti Hardwick, who's the Republican county chair, Aaron DeGroot, who's the Christian county chair, and Bruce Pillsbury, the Macon county chair, will get together under process spelled out in statute. They'll take applications. They have to have a public meeting to make the announcement. So all that will become public, but it's a weighted vote by the partisan county chair. So since I'm a Republican and been elected to that seat, a Republican has to fill the seat. That's how it works in Illinois statute. So it'll be a process similar. I was appointed to succeed Rich Brower when I came in. This is something that happens, fairly often in the General Assembly. Like I said, opportunities don't always, line up with the election calendar, and that's kind of what's happened here. I mean, if this opportunity may have been presented to me a year ago before I filed, maybe it would have been different. But it is the way it is, and we've got a pretty good way to fill it. And then that new person will be appointed, and they'll fill out the term, and then have to stand for election come in 24.
State Representative Tim Butler with us. Another procedural issue that is already up in discussion with your announcement deals with recent ethics legislation and the questions about a revolving door from going from the State House to then working for an organization that is going to be lobbying. So address that, yeah. And I guess how at the end of this General Assembly, the way the law is crafted is you're able to do this without any kind of time delay.
Yeah, so the ethics legislation that we passed a couple of years ago put in place for the first time, which I do think is the right thing to do. I mean, a revolving door, is a good thing the lack of a revolving door, I guess, something that I supported. So what we have in place now that doesn't kick in until the beginning of the next General Assembly is a 6-month revolving door ban. But there are some pretty large loopholes on this. So going forward, someone in this position, it doesn't carry over to the next General Assembly. So if you step down in the last few months, there's not the 6 month. It's only until the next General Assembly. And look, these are the things that we got to continue to take a look at. But look, a couple things. One, I know people don't think highly of lobbyists and advocates. They're up there with, politicians and car salesmen and lawyers and everything else. But it literally is a constitutionally protected job. It's the right to redress your grievances to the government is spelled out, and that's very few jobs that have that. And the second thing I would say, just like anything else, just like members of the General Assembly, just like people in business, you got to put good ethical people in these positions. And if you're doing things the right way and you're doing things above board, that's the way you should do it. And that's, that's the way hopefully I try to live my life and operate above board and do things ethically. And I think we have to ask of people going into any of these positions, that's the way you need to operate. And if we had more people that operate in ethical fashions, we wouldn't see all these problems that we have in Illinois. And when you look at the problems that we have in the General Assembly, they've been large, especially from the majority party, when you've seen, member after member after member get indicted or sentenced to jail now. I mean, there are literally people that I've served with in the General Assembly over the last 8 years who are now in jail because of the actions that they took unethically in office. And so we just need to elect good people and hold them to high standards, in my opinion.
State Representative Tim Butler with us, and he's going to stick around through the break to talk a bit more about the post-election dust settling. And, of course, his big announcement is he's not going to be in the new General Assembly that's seated in January. He's going to instead go to transition over to the Illinois Railroad Association to be their president. But, Representative, I want to get your reaction to the election outcome, the makeup of the House, and also what the future of the Republican Party is going to be here in the state of Illinois. So a short break. We'll be back with more. Of course, after the election, we lost all of our election commercials, Representative. So our commercial breaks shrank substantially.
You're welcome, people. We're done with that. Yeah.
So stay tuned. We'll be back with more here with Springfield's Morning. Told you it was a short break. Back live with State Representative Tim Butler here on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. I'm Greg Bishop. And again, the news is Representative Butler is going to be transitioning to be the president of the Illinois Railroad Association, and that is going to be effective at the end of this year. So he's not going to be in the new General Assembly, despite winning election heading into there. So there'll be a process laid out for the Republicans in his district to pick a replacement. But Representative, of course, here we are a few days after the election. Republicans in Illinois didn't get any of the statewide constitutional offices. Republicans in the Senate may have gained one seat, but still a supermajority in the Senate from Democrats. In the House, Democrats, they are actually gaining 4 or 5 seats.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 5 seats at the end of the day. Yeah.
So what's the future of the Republican Party in the state of Illinois?
Yeah, the first thing I got to say is, I was tremendously disappointed, Tuesday night. Obviously, any of us who are Republican in Illinois thought we were going to do a lot better. I think it speaks to the fact. I mean, and I've said this to publicly some other people. I think Donald Trump was the biggest loser on Tuesday night. I really do. And I think when you look at states and when you look at candidates who are good conservative candidates running on issues that matter to people and not denying the election and not running on January 6th and stuff like that. I mean, look what Ron DeSantis did in Florida. Ron DeSantis went out there and talked about the things that he's doing for Floridians, manages crisis with these hurricanes coming into his state and things like this. And you see a guy who barely won an election 4 years ago turn around and win by 20 points, who in my mind is, one of the top people now, front runner to be president in the Republican Party. You look what Glenn Youngkin did in Virginia last year, ran on pocketbook issues, talking to voters directly. And when you look at some of these areas, we actually did pretty good in New York, despite we got hammered at the top on the governor's race, but we actually did pretty good in New York on some of the lower races. And it's because I think the Republicans who were out there, you look what happened in Ohio. Where J.D. Vance had a close race and the gubernatorial candidate ran away. You look what happened in Georgia, where Governor Kemp got reelected by a wide margin, and we're going to a runoff with Herschel Walker. I mean, I think that tells you that Republicans really have a lane to move on from President Trump. To look at the future and say, let's put all this stuff behind. People are sick and tired of talking about all the craziness and the circus that we've had over the last 6 years. And I think they want to move on. And I think Republicans who embrace that and move forward in a positive fashion with a good vision of where we want to go are going to be successful in the future. I think here in Illinois, our party really needs to wake up to the fact that if we're going to play in the suburbs, we got to play in the suburbs. And the issues that impact the people of Illinois and the suburbs of Illinois are not exactly the same issues that people are talking about in even a district like mine or downstate Illinois. And we have to realize we've talked in the past about being the big tent party. We've always talked about that. If we're going to be the big tent party, you got to have a diversity of opinion and not rail on people who don't agree with you 100%. I have an A+ rating from the NRA. A+. I think I'm only one of 5 House members that have an A+ rating. I have a better A+ rating than a lot more of my conservative friends from Southern Illinois. I'm 100% pro-life. I am a pretty conservative guy. But when I get called a rhino because I don't fall in lockstep with some of the things that we've seen with President Trump over last year, that's not good. I mean, that we need to get away from that. We need to embrace people, good people who know how to win elections. And guess what? And I'll pat myself on the back. I know how to win elections. I've been involved with a lot of them. And I think, we need good people who are going to step forward who can move us forward in a positive way.
Is it just about the messaging, or is it about the ground game as well?
Everything.
Because are enough resources being put into that ground game?
Everything. It's about candidate recruitment. It's about picking the right candidates in the primaries. It's about the resources. It's about the ground game. And I was really disappointed in the lack of coordination with the top of the ticket to the down ballot races. And I know my friends in the Republican Party don't like talking about Bruce Rauner, and really some people chafed on him. But what we did in 2016 and what we did in 2014 when Rauner was running the first time, when they all thought we were going to lose seats. And what we did in 2016 with the resources with the governor in the middle of his term and coordinating a campaign across the state, we knocked off 5 Democrats in the House in 2016. And that's when I chaired our campaign side. And that's because we had resources coordinated across the state of Illinois. There was none of that really going on this time with the top of the ticket. I don't think the Bailey campaign had the bandwidth to run a campaign where we engaged candidates across the board. And I think that hurt us. I really do. I think that hurt us. And so we need to get back to the fact that the people at the top of the ticket need to realize you got to work with the caucuses and then really get the stuff on the ground.
We got 30 seconds. State Representative Tim Butler, what's going to happen with leadership in the Illinois House?
Yeah, I believe that if everything that I'm hearing, that Tony McComey, who's a rep from Savannah in northwestern Illinois, I think she's got the inside track probably on being leader, but we're going to see. I think we're going to have a leadership vote probably on it next Tuesday or Wednesday when we come back for veto session. And I think Tony would be great if she's the person to do it. I really like Tony a lot.
And any changes to the Safety Act coming?
We'll see. I think that's going to happen in lame duck session in January, not in veto session.
State Representative Tim Butler, greatly appreciate your time. Thank you for always being open.
Absolutely, you guys have been the best, Bishop.
Let's chat again before the end of the year. All right,
we can talk rail. Yeah.
Springfield's Morning News on WMAY.
From the Fly SPI Studios, take the easy